In the dim glow of his opulent study, surrounded by walls lined with leather-bound books and crystal decanters that mocked his solitude, Alexander Harrington crumpled to the floor like a discarded marionette. The telegram clutched in his trembling hand fluttered away, its words seared into his mind. Betrayal confirmed. Partners fled with assets. Company in ruins. But it wasn't just the fortune evaporating overnight. It was the final thread snapping in a tapestry of loss. His wife, Maid, gone 2 years now to that merciless car crash, her laughter in Mandarin still echoing in his dreams. Their unborn child, a promise unfulfilled. And now, the empire he'd built as a shield against grief, stolen by those he'd trusted like brothers. Tears streamed down his face, hot and unrelenting, as he pounded the Persian rug with fists that once signed billion-dollar deals. "Why me?" he whispered, his voice breaking into sobs that racked his body. "Haven't I suffered enough?" The world outside his Manhattan penthouse buzzed with indifferent life, but inside, Alexander's heart fractured anew, plunging him into an abyss where denial whispered lies and pain clawed at his soul. Alexander paced the marble floors of his sprawling estate, the echo of his footsteps a hollow companion in the vast emptiness. It had been weeks since the betrayal, but he refused to believe it. "It's a mistake," he muttered to himself, staring at the financial reports scattered like fallen leaves across his desk. "They'll come back. We'll rebuild." Denial wrapped around him like a suffocating fog, blinding him to the reality that his partners, men he'd shared cigars and secrets with, had orchestrated the downfall of Harrington Industries. The company he'd poured his life into after Maid's death, using work as a fortress against the grief that threatened to consume him. But now, cracks spiderwebbed through that fortress, and pain seeped in unbidden. Mornings blurred into nights as Alexander isolated himself, barking orders at staff he barely saw. "Leave me be," he'd snap at the butler, retreating to the study where Maid's portrait hung, her almond eyes gazing with the warmth he'd lost. Internal whispers haunted him. Asterisk, you failed her. You failed everyone. Asterisk, memories assaulted him, her teaching him Mandarin during lazy afternoons in Beijing, where they'd met on a business trip. "Ni hao, my love," she'd say, her voice like silk. Now, speaking those words aloud felt like swallowing glass, a reminder of the family ripped away in that rain-slicked accident. The pain was physical, a vice around his chest, making breaths come in shallow gasps. One evening, desperate for distraction, Alexander hosted a lavish gala at his home, a facade of normalcy for New York's elite. Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead as guests in tuxedos and gowns mingled, their laughter grating against his raw nerves. He moved through the crowd like a ghost, forcing smiles that didn't reach his eyes. Then, in a moment of unbidden vulnerability, a guest mentioned a deal in China. Something snapped. "Women xiao zhao dao gung hao de fangen," Alexander blurted in Mandarin, his voice laced with frustration. Asterisk, we need a better solution. Asterisk, the room froze. Whispers halted. Champagne flutes hovered midair. Eyes widened in shock at the reclusive millionaire, fluently speaking a language none expected from him. Who was this man? They wondered, revealing hidden depths amid his crumbling empire. But then, from the shadows near the serving table, a voice responded, clear and melodic. "Shurda, Danya Shuyao Shinran Hanai Shin." Yes, but it also requires trust and patience. Everyone turned. There stood the maid, a beautiful black woman in her crisp uniform, her dark curls framing a face radiant with quiet confidence. Her name was Zara, hired months ago through an agency, her presence unassuming amid the household staff. Gasps rippled through the room. How could she, the help, speak perfect Chinese? Alexander stared, his denial fracturing for the first time. Who was this stranger who pierced his isolation with words from his past? In the days that followed, pain intensified. Zara's unexpected reply lingered in his mind, a spark in the darkness. He avoided her at first, retreating deeper into solitude. But curiosity and desperation drew him out. One afternoon, finding her polishing silver in the kitchen, he confronted her. "How do you know Mandarin?" he demanded, his voice edged with accusation, as if her knowledge invaded his private grief. Zara paused, her brown eyes meeting his without flinching. I learned it in Nairobi, from Chinese engineers building roads. Language opens doors, Mr. Harrington. It healed parts of me I thought were broken. Her words stung, unearthing his own buried wounds. He stormed away, but that night, alone in bed, pain washed over him in waves. Why does she see what I can't? Internal turmoil raged, denial of his vulnerability clashing with the raw ache of loss. Small victories emerged reluctantly. A walk in the garden where a child's laughter from the neighboring park reminded him of what he'd never have, yet stirred a flicker of warmth. Interactions with Zara became tentative bridges. She'd leave notes in Mandarin on his tray. Ibu iga jiaoyin. One step at a time. Each one chipped at his walls, forcing him to confront the betrayal not just of partners, but of his own heart that had shut down after Li Mei. Yet pain dominated, manifesting in sleepless nights and outbursts. I don't need pity, he yelled at Zara once, when she offered tea during a breakdown. But her calm response, it's not pity, it's humanity, planted seeds of doubt in his denial. Through these struggles, Alexander began to peel back layers, realizing his empire's fall was a mirror to his emotional ruin. The chapter of denial waned as pain fully enveloped him, a necessary storm before any dawn. As weeks turned to months, Alexander found himself in the quietude of reflection, the estate's grandeur now feeling less like a prison and more like a sanctuary for introspection. The pain lingered, a dull throb rather than a sharp stab, but denial had crumbled under the weight of truth. He spent hours in the study, journaling fragmented thoughts. Li Mei wouldn't want this shell of a man. Internal dialogues unfolded like therapy sessions with his soul. Why did I build walls so high? The betrayal. Was it my blindness, trusting too freely after loss? These questions, once avoided, now demanded answers. Zara became an unwitting mentor, her presence a gentle catalyst. Their conversations evolved from awkward exchanges to profound dialogues. One rainy afternoon, as she arranged flowers in the foyer, vibrant lilies that reminded him of Li Mei's favorites, Alexander approached hesitantly. Tell me about Nairobi, he said, his voice softer, stripped of defensiveness. She smiled, her hands deft among the petals. It was chaos and beauty intertwined. My family lost everything in a flood, home, dreams. I was angry, denied it for years. But learning Mandarin from those strangers? It taught me resilience. Words connect us beyond pain. Her story mirrored his, betrayal by fate, loss carving deep scars. In her, he saw a reflection of his potential healing. Small victories punctuated his journey. A shared meal where he laughed for the first time in years, recounting Li Mei's playful Mandarin lessons. She'd tease me for my accent, he admitted, vulnerability blooming. Interactions extended beyond Zara. Venturing out, Alexander visited a local community center, drawn by a flyer Zara mentioned. There, he met children from immigrant families, their wide-eyed innocence sparking warmth. One boy, Xiao, struggled with English but lit up when Alexander spoke Mandarin. Ni hao, the child exclaimed, and in teaching him simple phrases, Alexander felt a realization dawn. Healing wasn't solitary. I've been so focused on loss, I've forgotten to give. The boy's gratitude, a handmade drawing of a family, stirred paternal echoes, easing the ache of his unborn child. Reflection deepened during solitary walks in Central Park, where strangers' lives intersected his. An elderly mentor-like figure on a bench shared wisdom. Pain is the soil for growth, son. Plant seeds in it. These moments accumulated, transforming struggles into stepping stones. Internal peace flickered. The betrayal freed me from illusions. Li Mei's love lives in memories, not chains. Zara's influence peaked in a pivotal evening. Finding him gazing at Li Mei's portrait, she said, healing isn't forgetting, it's honoring by living. Tears came, not of despair, but release. Personal growth emerged slowly, meaningfully. Alexander rebuilt not his empire, but himself, volunteering at the center, learning Swahili phrases from Zara as a gesture of reciprocity. Asante, he said one day, thanking her in her native tongue, their bond a tapestry of shared languages and scars. Struggles persisted, nights of doubt, echoes of pain, but victories mounted. forgiving his partners in a letter he never sent, finding joy in simple acts like cooking Li Mei's recipes. The transformative journey culminated in renewal. At another gathering, Alexander spoke Mandarin deliberately, not in frustration but connection, drawing Zara into a conversation that flowed like a river. Guests watched in awe, but he no longer cared for appearances. Self-acceptance settled like dawn. I am broken, but mended stronger. Emotional peace enveloped him, a quiet renewal where loss became legacy. In Zara's eyes, he saw not just a maid, but a mirror of his growth, a beautiful soul who answered his silent cries in perfect harmony. Moral of the story: healing from deep emotional wounds requires embracing the stages of denial, pain, reflection, and growth, often sparked by unexpected connections that remind us of our shared humanity. True inner strength arises not from isolation, but from vulnerability and the courage to let others illuminate our path, teaching us that self-acceptance blooms from the ashes of loss, fostering a renewed life of purpose and peace.